In Europe, there are multiple ethnically diverse nations, as you can very plainly see. However, many different ethnically diverse nations have united to form one singular entity, such as the United Kingdom, whose country has multiple ethnicities, such as Irish, Welsh, Scottish, and Native English. What makes a union a union? Is it when multiple ethnicities are under one banner, or is it when multiple ethnicities fight together against a singular banner? When ethnicities unite against a banner, after the banner is defeated, they tend to go their separate ways. However, in some cases, they stick around, or, in other cases, are forced to stick around. This series will highlight the forced unitarianism of the Yugoslav state and its gruesome, inevitable downfall. Our story begins in 1914. Balkan nationalism was at its height, as many people at the time wanted their own state for their own ethnicity. And this was most evident in the Balkans, where the southern Slavs of Bosnia, Croatia, and Slovenia wanted their own nations. This need for their own nations would be highly advanced to Napoleon, as he set up sister republics in different areas of Europe, giving their own people self-rule, somewhat similar to what Japan did in Southeast Asia in the 1940s, except Japan didn't set up puppet governments, they had local rule by the people. This brings us to Gavrilo Princip, a Bosnian Serb, a nationalist, and more importantly, one of the main characters to the story. On June 28, 1914, the Archduke of Austria would go to Sarajevo, Bosnia, on a trip, and was supposed to go back to Vienna the next day. However, Gavrilo Princip said otherwise. And not too much time later, he was shot, starting one of the biggest wars in modern history, World War I. Austria-Hungary then sent Serbia, who they believed were behind it, an ultimatum, with some very questionable requests. This was a unifying moment for the Serbian people. On July 28, 1914, after Serbia rejected the offers, Austria declared war on Serbia. Following this was now a series of war declarations, such as July 28, 1914, Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. August 1st, 1914, Germany declares war on Russia. August 3rd, 1914, Germany declares war on France. August 4th, 1914, Britain declares war on Germany. August 23rd, 1914, Japan declares war on Germany. August 6th, 1914, Austria declares war on Russia. And August 25th, 1914, Austria declares war on Japan. The incompetence of the Austrian army will be then shown when Austria tried to invade Serbia 3 times and failed each time. It was only when Bulgaria and the Ottomans joined the Central Powers that Serbia and Montenegro's resistance began to crumble, with them fleeing to Albania and Greece. Although Serbia was considerably weak, they had something that the invading powers didn't have: morale and the Serbian people rallying on their side. See, the war was heavily unpopular in areas like Austria and Germany. However, in Serbia, they called the war a war to unite the fellow Balkan brethren, which was the first time that the use of Yugoslavia, the idea of a Yugoslav state, would come into play within the first time in the entirety of Balkan history. This idea of a Balkan Union, however, was stretched far beyond modern Yugoslavia's borders, as it would encompass areas such as Bulgaria, Greece, Albania, and Romania. However, soon, the United States would join the war on the side of the Allies. Then, the war soon shifted to the side of the Allies. And, with not too long, World War I ended in an Allied victory. The interwar period saw an era of relative growth for the Yugoslav state, as they were able to unify the southern Slavs under one flag, a Yugoslavian flag. The Slovenes and Croats in the north, the Bosnians and Montenegrins to the west, the Serbs to the east, and the Macedonians to the south, the Yugoslav flag reigned on all sides. However, this unity would be contested by an upcoming force, so powerful that it could possibly make cracks in Yugoslavia's capability and might lead to the end of a union. The Kingdom of Yugoslavia's first leader was Peter I, who, on his trip to Marseille, got assassinated by Vlado Shimazensky. The crown then passed to his 11-year-old son Peter, but since he wasn't of age to rule, Peter I's cousin Paul ruled until 1941, when Peter II became of age. During the midst of World War II, the Axis surrounding Yugoslavia forced it to be signed over, and since Paul was afraid, he signed it over. However, in 1941, Paul was opposed in a coup d'etat since Peter II was now of age to rule. However, since Peter wasn't Axis-friendly, the Axis swept through Yugoslavia, taking it over in only a matter of 10 days. The invasion of Yugoslavia is not actually talked about that much, as since they were taken over in 10 days, they basically swept over it as a country that was too weak to defeat the Nazi war machine. The Nazis then made a puppet state in Croatia to carry out their dirty work. However, instead of it having a Yugoslav symbol, it had a Croatian symbol, a Croatian flag, and a Croatian emblem. The war crimes carried out by the Croats against the Serbs are so brutal that they deserve a video of their own. All of this compiled would be one of the leading factors of mistrust in a Yugoslav state that would soon arise. Although Yugoslavia was taken over, they put up a fight. The Yugoslav partisans were actually well-trained and had substantially high morale, so much so that they became the only country in World War II to liberate themselves. However, although the new state had arrived, the kingdom would be ousted and replaced with a Socialist Federalist Republic. The Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, or more commonly known as SFR Yugoslavia, would be led by Josip Tito, a former army marshal who was placed into power by the Soviets in 1944. Although the Croats in the midst of the Second World War committed unspeakable actions against the Serbian and Muslim population, Tito knew just how to fix the situation. Some good old-fashioned forced Unitarianism. Tito stopped public schools from teaching children about the genocide that the Croats committed against the Serbs in fear of tension rising in the new Yugoslav state, which, to be fair, was relatively smart. Tito's mindset at the time mainly revolved around a if you don't tell them, they will never know type of mindset, which somehow worked. Under Tito during the Cold War, he would make Yugoslavia distance itself from the Soviet giant and formed a non-aligned pact. A select pact of nations that neither aligned with the United States nor the USSR. However, these would be some of the last good days for Yugoslavia. After the fall of the USSR, the entire economic system of Yugoslavia collapsed. As well as Tito dying, the country was in disarray. The false sense of unity that Yugoslavia once possessed was now gone. War started popping out inside of Yugoslavia, which I'll go into further detail in the next part of this series. Mass loss of life, distrust, and the ultimate downfall of any hope for Balkan unity, as well as the downfall for the Yugoslav dream. Yugoslavia's legacy still lives to this day, but not in what many would call the nicest ways possible. Many people in the Balkans and across the planet blame the United States for the ultimate downfall of Yugoslavia. However, this was untrue. From the genocide the Croats committed in World War II, distrust was already building from the start. Like a bottle with a bunch of wasps in it, Tito was the only one keeping it trapped. However, once he died, they were no longer trapped, and chaos ensued. In the next part of this video series, I will go into further detail about the fall of Yugoslavia, which will be coming at the time frame of 2 to 5 months after this video should be released. The entire video would not have been possible without the contributions of many talented artists, such as Trapal for making these really cool frames and in general being a really pog dude and a cool friend. Ashen Mapping for making these frames and also being really cool. Greater Canada for giving me emotional support through the entire project. And last but not least, Hot Dog, who made these really amazing frames and actually was meant to do audio for the video. However, my editing software is really fucking dumb and it didn't process it, so sadly it couldn't be in the video. However, he did also make this really amazing fan art. But with all that being said, this was Cordennin, and until next time, I'm out. Peace.